Welcome into A to Z Sports Primetime on this Thursday night, February the 13th. So happy to have you guys in for another episode of the Primetime program. We got news. It's the only news anywhere in the football media cycle. It's Aaron Rodgers. Now, you know that Aaron Rodgers has been expected to be released from the Jets for quite some time, but it did not become official from the team until this morning at about 10:15, 10:20, to where the team put out a statement saying that they were going to move in a different direction and that Aaron Rodgers would be scheduled as a post-June 1st designation, but would still be available for teams to sign as soon as the new league year begins, which, if I'm not mistaken, is less than a month from yesterday. March 12th is when the NFL new league year will begin, when free agency will begin, and when the Titans can start to at least feel out some of the quarterback equation, if not all of the quarterback equation. First free agency, then, of course, the draft. The question is Aaron Rodgers any kind of a solution to the Titans quarterback question? That is something that we can talk about here this evening. We can also talk about, if he doesn't land here, where might Aaron Rodgers land in 2025? I think that's a fascinating question unto itself. And we got a little weekend bounce back before we send you on your way for this weekend. Before we get started, need you guys to share the broadcast around on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. I'll even do it with you, as is the custom. If you're hanging out on Twitter, please retweet the show. It's in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you're on Facebook Live, you can share now to public. That's in the bottom left. I'm sharing right now on Facebook. If you're on YouTube or Twitch, hit that thumbs up button. Just throw us a like if you would be so inclined. Text the link to a friend if you're feeling even more generous, and we will continue our discussion, our off-season discussion about the Titans, quarterback solutions, draft prospects, free agency, and all the fun stuff that is on the horizon. Next week gets us 1 week closer to the Combine, and of course the Combine is where stuff really starts to pick up traction. So we're excited about all of those things, and we're excited to have you along for the ride. We are even more excited when you guys share this show around, and as you do that, more of y'all will trickle on in here, and we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome into A to Z Sports Primetime from the Zen Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch. If it was a normal Friday, I would go to work out at TrueMath Fitness on my Friday, but because of Valentine's Day, we're having to make some adjustments, and I will have to resume my TrueMath Fitness workout next week. But you can start your TrueMath Fitness workout routine whenever you like, whether it's Fridays, Saturdays. They even have Sunday sweats, 5 days a week, 7 days a week, rather. They have classes for you, group fitness classes, or your first workout free online at TrueMathFitness.com. Zen Sports, promo code ATOZTN makes betting that much better. That's because you get a $100 no danger first wager with that promo code. Terms and conditions do apply. By Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Online at TwoRiversFord.com. Quality American-made Ford vehicles, award-winning customer service, and the Bart Durham Injury Law Firm. You deserve to be paid. Find out how you can expedite that process at BartDurham.com. Aaron Rodgers. So this is going to be a controversial topic for a lot of different teams. There are 6 teams that come to mind when I think about teams in the NFL, including the Tennessee Titans, that need a different quarterback situation. Obviously, the Jets become the 6th quarterback, or the 6th team in need of a quarterback in this equation, with the news that they would move on from Aaron Rodgers. They informed him last week, as a matter of fact, according to the team's website, and these are the statements from the Jets. Last week, we met with Aaron and shared that our intention was to move in a different direction at quarterback, said head coach Aaron Glenn and GM Darren Mougey. I'm not sure how the new Jets general manager's last name is pronounced, but either way, Mougey. Quote, "It was important to have this discussion now to provide clarity and enable each of us the proper time to plan for our respective futures. We want to thank him for the leadership, passion, and dedication he brought to the organization and wish him success moving forward." There's some statements from Woody Johnson as well about personally thanking Aaron in 2023, his arrival and all the excitement, and that never really manifested. He turns 41 in December, started all 17 games last season coming off that Achilles, 3,897 yards, 28 touchdowns, which is kind of crazy. The third best single season totals in franchise history. Aaron Rodgers and the terrible Jets, the 4-win Jets. That was the third best single season in terms of yardage and totals in franchise history. The Jets, man, it's just crazy how long they have suffered at this point in time. The question for you, your Two Rivers Ford take, is this, if you are so inclined. What is your level of interest in Aaron Rodgers as the Titans quarterback? Let me know on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. How interested do you think the Titans should be in Aaron Rodgers? That's the question for you. It's your Two Rivers Ford take. As always, it's presented by Two Rivers Ford, quality American-made Ford vehicles, award-winning customer service. TwoRiversFord.com for more information, best prices, best financing, best customer service, and of course, the quality American-made Ford vehicle product. TwoRiversFord.com for more details. How interested should the Titans be? Lewis on YouTube says 0. Mike Bell goes the opposite direction. He says very interested. B. French agrees on that point. Curtis says 0. Get out of here, old man. He's taking the approach that Deshaun Elliott, I don't know if you saw the Steelers safety Deshaun Elliott take to Instagram, because right now the Pittsburgh Steelers are the betting favorite for Aaron Rodgers' services in 2025. And Pittsburgh obviously has a need at quarterback, to be sure. But Deshaun Elliott, one of the Pittsburgh Steelers safeties, got on Twitter and said, yeah, about that. Take his ass to the retirement home. Not interested in Aaron Rodgers. The retirement home line really hit home. And again, he's 41 years old. It's pretty crazy that anybody expects him to be viable at his age, but he looked kind of viable at the end. And as he spent more time recovering from the Achilles injury, or as he got back from the Achilles injury, that was something that they were able to, he worked behind the bad Jets offensive line. They didn't have a ton for him there, and he certainly didn't help himself in a lot of these situations, but it was a really difficult situation to navigate. I'll tell you how I feel about that here in just a second, right after I play for you this clip of Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network talking about the Rodgers. It's a pretty difficult question to answer. That is Ian Rappaport and Brian Baldinger and Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network talking about Aaron Rodgers' release from the Jets. A to Z Sports Prime Time is made possible by the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. Go to GaryAshton.com. Your dream address without the stress, the intel edge you need to succeed can be found online at GaryAshton.com, the official real estate agent of the Predators. Yeah, that's really a part of the equation here. So of the 6 teams that we know need quarterbacks in 2025, including the Jets now, we know the Steelers, the Jets, the Browns, the Giants, the Raiders, and the Titans are the 6 teams. The teams that are interesting that could further provide some intrigue or some potential upset effect to the quarterback apple cart this offseason, we'll call it. The Rams, who might be interested in moving Matt Stafford. We'll see ultimately what the cost to acquire Matt Stafford might be. There's some reporting specific to the Rams saying that they would at least listen to offers on the former Super Bowl champion and Matt Stafford. And then there's the Colts. If you wanted to throw an 8th kind of wild card team into the mix there, Anthony Richardson is anything but a sure thing. And if I'm Indianapolis, I don't know that I don't consider somebody like Aaron Rodgers, because the Colts they're not a bad football team. They're a very mid football team. And what Richardson obviously brings is some high-level upside, but no consistency whatsoever to date. Perhaps that's something that they're committed to working with him on. But I might, if I was at least curious about people who need to win in 2025, I would be looking at Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen and be like, I don't know if you want to just ride things out with Anthony Richardson and having Aaron Rodgers as an option there may be something that's intriguing to them. Maybe not. Also, Rodgers, to Ian Rappaport's point, has to be interested in the viability of the team. The Titans aren't winning the Super Bowl in 2025. We all understand this. The Raiders aren't winning the Super Bowl in 2025. The Browns, the Jets. I mean, obviously, he just left the Jets. All the Giants, the Steelers, maybe it's Pittsburgh, and that's why there is the at least the gambling markets right now have the Steelers as the betting favorite to land Aaron Rodgers, and I think that's a place where, yeah, it's an uphill battle. You're in, I mean, I don't know. Bert, is the AFC North still the toughest division in football? I would still argue that it's up there. I know that there were a couple of divisions this year. The NFC North, obviously, hugely competitive. But the AFC North is a really, really tough division to duke it out twice a year with the Ravens, with the Bengals. We'll see what happens with the Browns this season. I just don't know where else he lands. Here's what I'll say about the Titans and Aaron Rodgers. Because he is a quarterback domino, and he does have an impact on them, even if he doesn't sign here. And I would not expect him to sign here for this reason and this reason alone. Brian Callahan kind of escaped being tied to the Will Levis anchor. Now, he is somewhat going to be viewed heading into 2025 as a party who was involved with the 3-14 failure. And that's absolutely deserved. Brian Callahan was the head coach of a team that went 3-14, the worst team in football last year. Brian Callahan holds some responsibility. But for the most part, nobody's really attaching Brian Callahan to Will Levis because Will Levis was here prior to Brian Callahan's arrival. And yeah, there was a lot of messaging around excited to work with Will Levis and excited to take his game to the next level and, committed to finding out about Will Levis. And certainly they effed around and found out. But for the most part, Brian Callahan hasn't been sunk. If Brian Callahan gets fired, it's not because he was tied to Will Levis, right? For somebody who would be able to escape that anchor that Will Levis was last year to then tie themselves to Aaron Rodgers at 41 years old, that really, really goes beyond belief. I don't know what's in Brian Callahan's head. I would not pretend to speak for the man. I'm sure he has great respect for Aaron Rodgers, the player, over the course of his career. But that doesn't mean that you want to tie your professional viability as an NFL head coach. An NFL head coach who's coming in to 2025 on as thin of ice as any coach out there, I would argue. Maybe the Giants are in less stable situation because it's not insignificant that somebody felt confident enough, somebody in that organization, whether it be Amy or Chad Brinker, felt confident enough in Brian Callahan to make sure that they were clear on the idea, yeah, he's coming back in 2025 because at 3-14, those conversations are fair to have. But I can't imagine that Brian Callahan is in the frame of mind to look around, kind of duck the Will Levis thing a little bit, only to be hit in the face with an Aaron Rodgers situation. I would be shocked by that. Really, really shocked. Curtis says the anchor caught ran. Now, there's multiple reasons why the anchor caught ran. Some of them fair, some of them not fair. But Rand is the last person left in the organization, or was the last person left in the organization responsible for drafting Will Levis. Well, no, I guess that's not true because Chad Brinker was an assistant general manager under Rand Carthon, but we understand that Rand Carthon was the primary party in that situation, the primary focal point in that situation, even though Ryan Cowden and Mike Vrabel were still in the building. So we look at this and say percentage chance, I would put it under 5% that Aaron Rodgers plays for the Tennessee Titans, both because I don't think that he wants to, screw around to win 7 games, which would be, by the way, an improvement for him and also improvement for the Titans. But also, I don't think the Titans are in a position to just say, yeah, we'll mess around with the Aaron Rodgers thing. They're not on solid enough ground to be able to handle that yet. And that's an indictment of them too, because you would like to not have to worry about things like the stability of the organization and putting in, a bit of a wild card factor like Rodgers is. But Rodgers is a significant wild card factor, and I don't think there's a lot of organizations that are stable enough to handle what it is that he kind of brings with him at this point, fairly or unfairly. Now, there is a clip making the rounds of Jeffrey Simmons saying he wants the Titans to draft Abdul Carter, number 1 overall. Bert, I don't know if you heard me on that, but I will send it to the group, and we will see if Bert can snag that. If we can, well, maybe we'll do that on the 615 sessions tomorrow, because I do think, or we'll do it on the radio show tomorrow, to be honest with you, because I want a chance to listen to the clip rather than just react to it blindly. But where do you think Aaron Rodgers does end up landing in 2025? That's the question next. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. We'll talk about it together right after I remind you that the Primetime program is made possible by the Bart Durham Injury Law Group. You deserve to be paid. You can get your free consultation right now at bartdurham.com, because they're open, available 24/7 to defend your rights. You can request a remote consultation from the safety of your home through their chat. You can call them by phone. You can fill out an online contact form. Do not hesitate to reach out if you feel like you have been wronged. Call Bart Durham, Blair Durham, and their team at the Bart Durham Injury Law Group will get you the results that you deserve. BartDurham.com for more information. Where do you think Aaron Rodgers lands in 2025? We'll talk about it together. Major Keys says Pittsburgh. And B French both say Tennessee. I don't know about all that. I would, based on what, I guess, I would be curious to know your logic, because there's so little indication that, in fact, I would put that as among the least likely landing spots for him right now. Things could change, but like I said, combine is around the corner. We could hear new information. Perhaps perspectives will change. Perhaps people in organizations that need a quarterback will go back and review Aaron Rodgers stuff and say, maybe it's not as bad as I thought it was. Maybe we can make something work here. Randy Howard says Vegas, Carroll could work with Rodgers while figuring out a long-term solution. Neither of those are long-term solutions, though, Randy. Pete Carroll's 73. That's what makes the Raiders thing so crazy. They're rebuilding, and they've hired Pete Carroll to turn them around. Now, maybe Pete Carroll can get them to a point and then somebody else can take over, but there's nothing long-term about the only thing that long-term looks viable for the Raiders is the fact that Brady's in ownership now and that John Spytek is a first-time general manager getting an opportunity. And maybe Pete Carroll's good with just doing this for a couple of years, getting this thing back to stable, and then helping to transition into a coach who can potentially be more a part of their long-term solution. But the 73-year-old coach and the 41-year-old quarterback in Vegas, I don't know, man. That sounds like a retirement home type of situation. I would think the Steelers would be the most likely. It's just a gut feeling, but talking to some people in Pittsburgh, talking to some people who work for the Steelers organization, it doesn't seem right now on February the 13th, it doesn't seem like any kind of a lock that Russell Wilson or Justin Fields would be back in 2025, one over the other for certain. But right now, both players seem kind of up in the air. I think they trend less in the direction of Russell Wilson, but we'll see. Time will tell. That for Pittsburgh, if you wanted to keep Justin Fields, continue to develop him, and bring in Aaron Rodgers for a year, that makes the most sense. That's going to keep them competitive enough in the AFC North. That's going to give Rodgers a level of stability that I think very few other organizations bring. He clearly respects Mike Tomlin. He would have a bit of a combustible element in George Pickens to work with, and I'd be curious to know how that marriage would look, given that it doesn't seem like he got along great with Garrett Wilson. So that's no guarantee that those two would benefit from one another. That's a potential, we'll call it speed bump at this point in time. But for the Tennessee Titans right now, I am fascinated to see how the Rodgers domino falls, because, Pittsburgh's about the only team that I can draw a legitimate connection to. I think there's too many things that would have to happen in Minnesota, for example, to put him in a position where he could become the Vikings stopgap solution while J.J. McCarthy's still coming back from injury. But I suppose that's why we'll enjoy the offseason. There'll be a lot of quarterback dominoes to fall. Monty Watkins says he did buy a house here. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people buy houses here. George Kittle lives here. That doesn't mean he's coming to play for the Titans. Randall Cobb does play here. Maybe that's appealing, or does live here. Maybe that's appealing to Aaron Rodgers. Get the band back together. There's lots of people that live in Middle Tennessee. They don't live specifically in Nashville, where Rodgers bought his property and where Kittle's compound is. There's just a lot of people who move here, and it's a wonderful place to live. And no state income tax is helpful, and all these other things that make Tennessee appealing. We don't have legalized psychotics or psychedelics, which would be a problem for Aaron Rodgers, but we do have legalized psychotics if you want to take that to a different kind of political discourse, but you get my meaning. It would just be a lot. And I don't think that they can handle a lot right now. I don't think they're equipped. They're way too early on in the infancy of trying to get this thing back to stable. Jack Tripper says, I'm tired of all of this hypothetical BS. I'll come back after the draft. I mean, I get what you're saying about that. By the way, the draft is going to be a fascinating draft this year. There is going to be a live show with Greg Cosell that we're looking forward to. We told you that the tickets were available for that starting yesterday. We had a bunch of people snap up VIP tickets yesterday. We had a handful of people buy general admission tickets yesterday as well. $30 is the get-in price for GA. If you're interested, 1045thezone.com for more information. All right. Weekend bounce back is how we'll wrap up. Who needs to bounce back most this weekend? Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. Let me know, and we'll discuss at length together right after I remind you that the Primetime program is made possible by Zen Sports. Zen Sports is always there for you, no matter what time of season, no matter where in the sports calendar, and they can put you in position to succeed with all manner of great offers. Right now, they have the VIP Players Courtside Club sweepstakes going on. You have the promo code ATOZTN that can get you involved. New users will receive 500 bonus entries when they sign up using a promo code ATOZTN. And terms and conditions do apply, courtesy of Zen Sports. Must be 21 plus and in the state of Tennessee to bet. Gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789 for more information. Yes, Bert has the link for the install. He'll drop it in the live stream chat for those of you who want to attend the live Titans draft reaction show. Very exciting stuff. Always a good time to have Cosell in town. We are expecting to announce special guests around Combine Week for the install show. That's the plan right now. If anything changes with that, we will adjust as necessary. Jackie says, man, Buck, y'all are killing me with the early May dates. I didn't go last year because it was the day after my wife's birthday. This year it's on her birthday. Yeah, that's unfortunate for you. But I don't want to do it 2 weeks after the draft. I want to do it the week after the draft. And, I appreciate that. Let me say this, Jackie. I appreciate your interest. And I'm sorry that it's not a date that works for you, but for everybody else, it's a date that makes the most sense. And it's a rare enough thing that you get that kind of insight. No other market, none of the other 31 NFL markets get something like this. And this is something that Bills fans have tried to latch onto and try to recreate in Buffalo. This is something that I see San Francisco fans trying to figure out how they can do with Cosell, because Greg does some work for Buffalo and for San Francisco. He obviously does national hits with people like Colin Cowherd and stuff like that, but it's really the only market that does something like this. So I get it. I'm sorry that that's not convenient for you, but it's a date that we really like, or a setup that we really like to be able to react to the draft picks in that kind of a fashion 1 week after the draft. Who needs to bounce back? In the comments section, Carrie B says the Mavs in general. Man, the protests from Mavericks fans after the Luka Doncic trade, the fact that Anthony Davis got hurt in his first game with the Mavs, just an absolute debacle as far as that goes. Obviously, Luka has been in Los Angeles now. He's just started playing. He's looked pretty good so far. We'll see if LeBron has any meaningful impact on how well he's able to get himself into shape, because, of course, conditioning has been an issue with Luka. But, yeah, It's really tough. B. Friend says the Vols need to bounce back. They can't beat Kentucky or shoot the three. It's really just against Kentucky that they're so bad. They can't defend the three. Kentucky just firing at will, 50% in both games. Were they hitting from three? And yeah, they just couldn't hit. They couldn't hit a shot from deep. That Chaz Lanier did not have a good game in this last Vols loss to Kentucky. Kentucky sweeps Tennessee on the year. That almost never happens in that basketball series. Ann Herndon says Drake. Yeah, Drake perpetually needs a bounce back. It's a pretty tough scene. Pretty tough scene at this point. Brandon says of the install, I'm on board. We didn't know how nice we had it. Yeah, I mean, listen, that's something that we're very happy to provide for you. Greg enjoys the hell out of it, and we enjoy it. It's very rare that we get out and get to do live shows with you guys. I know you guys are obviously involved in a live show with me every night in some form or fashion, but to actually be able to interact up close and personal with you guys is always fun. So yeah, we hope that everybody can come, and I would advise getting your tickets sooner rather than later. I assume when we announce special guests that they'll sell out, because last year we sold out with over a month to go before the actual event. So I want to give people as many different opportunities to get those tickets as humanly possible, for sure. Carrie B says, what will combine coverage be like? Well, I'll be up there in Indy for a week. We'll do the radio show Tuesday through Friday from Indianapolis. We'll do primetime, obviously, then. I assume Sam will have to adjust the night that I get off with Sam, because Tuesday is typically the night he does primetime for me, but we'll probably do Tuesday through Thursday from Indianapolis with the primetime show. We'll probably do 615 sessions up there too, depending on who stays in Indy to watch the drills. Typically Tehran's up there. Obviously Kaharski is somebody who will be around the combine, but I'm going to be there Tuesday through Friday and then come home Friday afternoon. But we'll have, again, speaking of special guests, we have a meeting tomorrow specifically about the kind of people that we are booking for the combine, talking to not just the Titans about their head coach and general manager, but trying to get some other people who these people have worked with prior to give you some more insights. Hopefully we'll be able to tell you who's going to be on later next week is when I would anticipate being able to announce some of these guests. Maybe we'll have some familiar faces that are now coaching in new places stop by the table. It's going to be an interesting time in Indianapolis, but and certainly with the Titans being not the belle of the ball necessarily, but having a really good seat at the table this year for the draft discourse and the level of interest that will be had in their number one overall pick. MB says, what does Greg do in the offseason? He doesn't have an offseason. Greg just watches college players, and then he'll go back and, he does have an offseason, but Greg started watching college players 2 weeks ago during the Senior Bowl week in preparation, in the gap that we had, because obviously he does the ESPN NFL matchup show every week with Sal Paolantonio. Greg will continue to do prospect analysis throughout the course of it. He obviously does the podcast every week with me during the offseason. Greg last year, I know, went to the Offensive Line Masterminds Clinic that Duke Manyweather puts on, where you get to be around the offensive linemen from every team who come in, a lot of the college prospects who come to learn from a lot of the NFL veterans that are there. I know he learned a lot about offensive line insights that he was able to bring to the table when we broke down J.C. Latham at great length. That was an interesting angle that Greg added to his arsenal. Last year, he consults with a lot of teams. He takes a lot of meetings with coaches specifically about, hey, just kind of picking people's brains, watches a lot of film with people that go to the NFL Films building on a weekly basis. For example, Bill Belichick and Chris Long, Ryan Clark, who do is it the CW show? Is that where they're doing that show right now? Or is it on Showtime? I'm not really sure where that Bill Belichick, Ryan Clark, Chris Long show emanates from. Well, I know where it emanates from. It emanates from NFL Films. That's where they tape it. So Greg interacts with them on a regular basis. He's basically the CW is where that show exists. So yeah, he spends a lot of time talking to different people, consulting for different people, helping different people with their tape breakdown approaches, and then obviously the prospect evaluation that he does here with us. So it's a good time. we really appreciate having Greg. Greg's a great asset for the radio show, for obviously me to be able to do that with him on a weekly basis. 5 years, coming up on 5 years we've been doing that podcast together, which is kind of crazy. It's crazy that the radio show is about to turn 5 next March. It's crazy that we've been doing prime time for 6. It's crazy that I've been here for 10 years, guys. I don't know. It's a lot of milestones that are coming up for us this year together, and I'm looking forward to continuing to do it with you. Have a great time this offseason, and with a lot of interesting perspectives that we're going to bring to the table. Normally, we don't do a lot of guests with the radio show, but we're going to up the ante this year. Somebody who does need a bounce back, speaking of bounce backs, is Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence could use a significant bounce back, and apparently the Steelers are interested in his services.
There was a report that came on the Big Ten Network today that Steelers made inquiries to the Jacksonville Jaguars about a trade for their quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, and according to the source, Ryan Burr of the Big Ten Network, Harry, that came direct from the horse's mouth in the Jaguars organization. Wow, and then it was completely refuted by everybody in the Jaguars organization.
Yeah, I don't know why Liam Cohen would take that job if they had plans on trading Trevor Lawrence.
Amen.
I would have stayed right there with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as their offensive coordinator with massive money going in my pockets and coaching Baker Mayfield for another season.
I just wonder why that would come out, because you're exactly right. They just hired a new coach. That report is completely ridiculous, but the fact that it was out there and that had to refute it, maybe a little bit of smoke.
Uh-oh.
So the report wasn't shot down. What was shot down is the Jags' level of interest in trading Trevor Lawrence. Nobody refuted the idea that the call was made or taken from Pittsburgh to Jacksonville. Now you might ask, who the hell is Jackson? Who are you even calling in Jacksonville to inquire about players? Well, Tony Baselli, who's their former radio analyst, who's obviously a Hall of Famer for that organization and has now a front office role. He's not an interim GM necessarily, but Tony Baselli would be operating on the personnel front until such time as they get a general manager in place. Speaking of GMs, John Robinson recently did an interview today for the Jacksonville Jaguars job. So that will be curious to see how that plays out. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight. Radio show tomorrow. We've got a lot of things going on the radio show tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. We will always have Coach Mack, as is the Friday custom. We have Jordan Reed from ESPN. That'll be a great time. We'll talk about the grades, the final 2024 grades for the Titans rookie class. Going to be a packed show on a Friday, so we hope to see you there on 104.5 The Zone from 10 to 1 tomorrow. Have a great rest of your evening. Get your tickets for the install at 1045thezone.com, and I'll see you in the morning.
Go home! Go home! Go home! You're embarrassing Nashville. Go home!